All
Oh,
right,
Kayla is here.
Yep. Hey, Kayla. So we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Dominic Maricic. I'm the CEO and founder of Home Inspector Pro. Have Dan McConnon on here, who is our director of support, and Kayla Sterner, who's our director of marketing. So this is our HIP 6 overview webinar. We've had HIP 6 out for a couple months now. We've had guys beta testing HIP 6 for probably about 6 months now. First thing I want to say, more than anything else, is thank you very much to the several hundred home inspectors that we have that that help beta test all our software. Those are the guys that are willing to put up with me releasing new updates to them every day or two, dealing with bugs as they come up, and are there to really give us a lot amount of really good feedback as they're testing things out before we release things to you guys. HIP Home Inspector Pro has been around for 17 years now. And one thing that I learned very early on is that testing in the office doesn't really do a lot. It doesn't matter. I can sit here and test for 8 hours, and it would not come across finding nearly as many things as you guys do as a home inspector, testing things all day long, every single day. And so the beta testers are really critical to helping us make sure things are stable before we get it out to releasing it to thousands and thousands of inspectors across the world. And so, they're using all different devices, and especially with HIP Mobile, even more than the desktop, there's over 2,500 different Android devices, and at least a dozen different iPhone and iPad devices. And so that testing is really critical. So Home Inspector Pro, we are actually, as of this video, which is being recorded on 6.6, we're on 6.0.22. That means we've actually had 22 versions of HIP 6 already. As far as the public's concerned, there's already been 3 different updates that we've released. And so you want to double check the version you have under the About menu to make sure that you have the most up-to-date. A lot of those other versions that you guys never see, those are the versions that either internally tested and then we find something or add something, or it goes through our beta testing team. If you do want to be on the beta testing team, on Facebook, there is a special Home Inspector Pro beta testers group that you can actually register for, and we let a select number of people into. So Home Inspector Pro 6, the first release of 6 had more new features and more updates and more bug fixes than in all of the HIP 5 updates combined, and even going back probably through most of the HIP 4. There was just a ton of stuff. We ended up pushing it back about 6 months longer than we had planned to, just because we were trying to get more and more features in there. And part of that is, as Home Inspector Pro, we've grown. When I started Home Inspector Pro 17 years ago at 24 years old, spending most of my time at a Panda Express at night coding, and shout out to those great Panda Express people for years of free food as I sat there bugging them. But now we have 24 people on our staff, and we have 12 programmers that are helping us work on the HIP Mobile side, the Home Inspector Pro desktop side, and the Home Inspector Pro Office side. And a lot of that was actually during the last year. We added 11 new employees or 12 new employees over the last year. And so, we've had to adjust. There's been a lot of new programmers, and, before that it was me and 4 or 5 programmers, and we had to really adapt to beta testing internally, and me going through and approving things, and I had to release control and have other people looking at things and reviewing stuff, and that definitely has taken some adjustment, and I think we've gotten a lot of that down, but we're still working on smoothing out the hierarchy and improving things more. But so it took a few extra months, just because what happened was when myself and my head of programming jumped in to really review everything that our other programmers had created. While waiting for us to finish looking at things, they had created so many new features that were on our to-do list that it was just this catch-up game to catch up with them. And so, anyways, anyone who purchased HIP 5 or upgraded to HIP 5 in 2020 or in the beginning of 2021 gets HIP 6 for free. That was one of the questions I saw that comes up there. Anyone else before that, the upgrade is $249. To upgrade, and you could do that directly on our website by going to the pricing page. So what's new? So I have this giant sheet, an invisible sheet of all these cool features. You can find this change log on our website if you go to help.homeinspectorpro.com, or if you just click on support in the top right and go to the help desk. There is a detailed list of features, but of course, hearing them and seeing them in person will definitely help people out. And so that's the plan today, is to go through these things. So here we go. We're going to get started. So first thing, and I have to say, one of tech support's #1 favorite features is there are no more license files. I should hear a huge roar of applause, except that this is a Zoom webinar and I can't see you or hear you. But this is really big for all of our franchises using Home Inspector Pro, all our multi-inspector firms, all of the inspectors that are on subscriptions, and most of all, for all our tech support people. License files made a lot of sense when we created Home Inspector Pro 1.0, and the original group of inspectors never were on the internet. Literally, they took out a Windows tablet. It was the HP TC 1100, was this really cool HP tablet. And they would finish the report on site. They would take out their inkjet printer at the time, and they would print 3 copies, one for the agent, one for the inspector, and one for the client. And they'd leave, and they were done. And that computer never touched the internet except to download a new version of HIP. And so for a long time, we still had a lot of inspection companies where, especially the multi-inspector companies, the employees never touched the internet. And then more and more, of course, that's really not the case anymore. And so it made sense to stop this method of having to manually email out license files when inspectors needed it. And so that means for support, it freed us up a lot to not be creating new license files and to be working on things like knowledge base articles and new video tutorials, and everything else. And so the way things work right now, and I'm going to go ahead and share screen so I can jump back and forth here. But there is an article that goes over this in detail. Let's see if HIP Office is timed out. It's been a while. But Home Inspector Pro Office, which is office.homeinspectorpro.com. I know the name confuses people from time to time. HIP Office is, yes, it's our scheduling system for those that use it. A lot of people use ISN or other software. That's totally no problem. We expect that. And we integrate with all those awesome platforms. But at the same time, with Home Inspector Pro Office, we also built this to be our scheduling system. Our licensing system. And we're adding in a lot of other features into this as well, even for people that are not using HIP Office. So if you're not using HIP Office, you'll still go to office.homeinspectorpro.com. You'll log in and you'll see a different set of features. You're not going to see the full scheduler and everything else. But what you will see is this settings option. And within that, an employees and an inscription. So under employees here, I'm going to click on this. And this works whether you're a single inspector. Obviously, it works for even more if you're a multi-inspector. But I can see all my employees here. And one of the cool things is, as an owner, when I log into HIP, it'll show me all the inspectors that work under me. And so that way you can switch between their licenses. That's really convenient if someone takes off and is on vacation and you can't get a hold of them. You can log in, you could download their files, you could generate reports of them. But on here, you can go and you can allocate licenses to them. If you need to, you can go over to subscriptions and you can purchase new licenses as you're adding new inspectors, which obviously happens constantly for a lot of our inspection companies. And then you can allocate that license to yourself, or you can click and see who it's allocated to now. These are, of course, all my demo inspectors, or you can add new inspectors. So within Home Inspector Pro, if I go up to actually the first time really that you log into the software, it's going to pop up and it's going to ask you for your name and your password. And the licenses are automatically going to load based on that. Subsequently, if you go over to edit and load license, instead of asking for a license file like it has for a very long time, it's going to pop up and show all the licenses that are valid to you. And in this case, it's not just your license, but it's other employees. And so those of you that are MASH lovers will remember BF Hawkeye Pierce, who is our main inspector here. And I could also load 2 additional licenses here, click on load, and it says all 3 licenses are loaded. And now if I go to edit and company information, which is actually where I was already, I can go and I can select through different licenses and different inspectors and work as them. Obviously, when your employees log in, they will only be able to see the license that is pertinent to them. but you as the owner, or shortly, you'll be able to assign this to office managers and stuff, are able to see multiple licenses. So this is something really big. It's something that we've been waiting for a long time to get done, but it required a lot of back end changes to start grouping all the companies together and handling licenses. So if you're on the subscription, licenses will just automatically renew. If you're a multi-inspector firm and someone quits tomorrow, or you let somebody go, you can log into HIP Office and immediately deallocate that license, assign it to someone else, or if you just deallocate it, it's going to shut that inspector's software off. There's some other features there within the license section of HIP Office. You can assign a draft license. A draft license means when the inspector generates the report on their computer, it'll have a draft watermark across it. That's really there for moonlighting protection, to keep guys from using your software without you knowing about it. And then you can also turn that off. But when they upload to HIP Office or ISN, or shortly Next Inspect, it'll automatically drop that draft feature off. And so that's licensing. If you have any questions, you can ask directly in chat. Dan, I'll take a break, or you can interrupt from time to time if there's anything directly about the topics that I'm talking about. So the next thing, we added in new variables, and there's a few different new variables I'll cover as I'm going through here. The first one is inspector signature. And so we've had quite a few different variables that are already in the software. We also moved the edit documents button from the main bar. We moved it over to edit and then create and edit documents. But this new variable, simply what it's going to do, if you insert inspector signature in there, it's going to, when you generate the report, replace the signature, and you load that signature directly here under report settings. You have a spot for inspector signature that you can create, or you can upload an external signature. You can also do the same thing, which we'll talk about in a little bit, about the client signature. So that could be used there. It could also be used directly within the cover page designer. Within the cover page designer, we have Mike Lagana, one of our very lucky inspectors who lives in Kauai. I really can't consider what he does work, considering he gets to go surfing in the middle of the day and has gorgeous views of the water, which he so politely sends me every single day from each inspection he does. But you can use those variables. You can also just check this box right here, and that will grab your inspector signature and put it directly on the cover page there as well. A couple other things that we added that are connected here. The first thing is the agent photo. So here's our really good looking real estate agent. As you guys know, most real estate agent photos are actually of our real estate agents when they're like 22 years old. In this case, we're gonna keep the raw photo here. So this real estate photo can go directly on your cover page of your report. I've already seen some inspectors using this, and it looks really good. You can use this elsewhere in the software, but this photo could be manually loaded into the address book. It'll be automatically imported from ISN. It'll be automatically imported from HIP Office. And this is really a co-branding thing. If you want to, make things look sharper, you have your real estate agent's name, you have their name directly underneath it, you have your logo, you could have your photo on there as well. But that allows you to co-brand it. And of course, when the agent sees it, it feels like it's something that's a little more personalized to them and to the client. So very nice feature there. Let's see. So that is agent photo. So the next thing we talked about is we customized and added a few more features here that you can turn on and off the report titles, company information. We also added in new variables, particularly for our users outside of the US. So there's a new variable for client inspection province and agent province. We had some Canadians reminding us that states weren't appearing in previous versions, so those have been changed. The other big thing, and we'll jump over to this, really comes from what the report looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and generate a report here. You'll see there's a few new things here. One is TOC background, TOC font. So TOC is short for table of contents. So you can change the font type of the table of contents here directly. You could change the background. The background, and we'll probably be changing this a little bit, but as of right now, the background is a gradient between the header background and the TOC background. That means it'll fade from one color to the other. We did that to give a little more pizzazz to the header or to the table of contents rows themselves. You can make it a solid color as long as the header and the TOC background are the same. We're going to simplify that a little bit and make the controls for both of those directly under this TOC background feature here in a update coming soon. It was adding a little bit too much confusion that the gradient was from this color to this color. So we'll clean that up here shortly for you guys. Going in, so I'm going to generate this report here real quick, just create a quick sample. So some of the new things that I've added in here, we've added in new changes to the summary. We've added in new changes to the table of contents. We've added in new features for photos and for videos and how they interact directly in the report. This report here has a couple hundred photos. It is from one of our lovely friends in Kauai as well. So there's a lot of things there going on. And then most importantly is to remember that the report is actually in a web-based version and an HTML-based version. So I'm going to jump over here as well and pull up the web-based version so that I can compare and kind of show you guys both of these as we're going along. So I think I was on, let's see, I believe it's 202. I'm going to open this up real quick. And then I'm going to pull up under reports so we can view the PDF and the HTML version. If you are using ISN, of course, this exact same thing happens. The file will appear directly within ISN. So I can go down to reports and I have the HTML version of the report that we can look out here as well. So whether we're in the PDF or in the HTML, let's go ahead and scroll down. Actually, let's do this. Let's do a full page view so you can see how sharp Mike's pages are here. So zoom to page height. And let's snap this to a single page view. All right. This is one of the cover designs. If you weren't using HIP 5, I know there's quite a few users. We've been surprised that we're still using Home Inspector Pro 2, which means they hadn't updated in over, I think, 12 years. So while I am honored a little that software from 12 years ago was still fully out there functioning in the wild, I was a little shocked to find the number of inspectors that still hadn't updated, and we're missing out on features. And one of the things that is extremely important, and we hear about this a lot, is yes, all templates and inspections are backwards compatible, meaning that Home Inspector Pro 6 will open all your old templates and all your old inspections. I think we would be subject to mutiny from all our users if that wasn't the case. But yes, Home Inspector Pro definitely opens all previous versions. So we're going to jump down here a couple pages. You'll see the table of contents here pops out right away. I had a little bit of fun with the colors and the gradient going here. So you can see the header was black on all these pages, but the TOC, just to make it kind of pop out. You'll notice the cursor changes to a pointer finger. That means I can literally just click and jump between different sections. So I can jump directly to the plumbing section, I can jump directly to HVAC or anywhere else in the report. So we've always had the bookmarks on the side that allow us to jump directly from one section to another for the clients and for the agents and for you when you review. But we added a little bit more here by making the PDF itself completely interactive. And this does apply directly to the web-based report. I see this a lot on our Hawaiian inspection reports. HVAC system non-applicable because they live on a beautiful island, unlike me in SoCal where I drove through 105 degrees last week. So obviously he leaves that on there. One of the other big changes, I can click on a photo now and I will view that photo much larger than before. And this is the client. The client is able to view this and zoom in. How large that photo is depends on your settings in HIP Mobile and in HIP Desktop, depending on where you're importing your photos. So if you're importing your photos or taking your photos directly on mobile, there's a new option under the settings tab for photo quality 1 through 5. So we increased and change the quality. So previously, the quality 5 is actually equivalent to the quality 1 now. And what we did is the quality, I should rephrase that, the quality of all the photos is high, no matter you select 1 through 5. The size of the image changes from 1 through 5. So quality 1 is the same as used to be our 5. Now we've increased it. Realistically, most people will be perfectly fine with a 3 or a 4. I believe these photos here are a 3. If you're getting into doing litigation work, you might want to increase that to a 4 or a 5. Warning though, obviously, as you select a higher number, the file size will increase as well. You're taking larger photos, that photo has to be stored directly within the PDF file. So that's gonna cause things to be a lot larger. And that's why we still see a lot of inspectors using HIP6 that are just using a 1 or a 2 for their quality, and they're having no problem with that at all. So totally up to you. I'm not sure, let's see if this sample actually has a video in here anywhere. General, maybe Mike might have included some pictures of the waves from the house, just to kind of make the rest of us jealous. Videos in HIP6. So I'll pull up a different report in a minute if there's not any on here. So a lot of you noticed over last year, Adobe sunsetted, they ended the ability for PDFs to support Flash. And because of that, the way that we embedded videos before, HIP was the only software that could directly embed videos for a long time. And so when Flash took that away, obviously there was no way for clients to view it directly in the PDF version. They could fully view video in the web-based HTML version though at any time. So what we did now is we actually changed it. So you'll see a photo here, and when you, or the first frame of the video, and when you click the video, it'll launch the default system video player. And that way you'll be able to play video without any problems from HIP6. So that works extremely well on Windows or Mac. It will not still work on some preview PDF viewers. And we've talked about this in the past. When you open up a PDF from an email link, for example, it may open up in the Chrome or Safari preview browser. Google actually has been adding a lot more support into their preview. So for example, features that we've had, like our, jump to one here, like our glossary feature, where if you hover over a term, it pops up the definition. I hovered over GFCI, it popped up the definition. That actually started working now in a lot of the preview browsers, as Google and others have added support directly for that. But for the full immersion experience, you need to be using a full reader like Adobe Reader, which is completely free, or very simply, just make sure you include the web-based version of the report when you upload as well. We still include both, and we always will. Clients want to be able to store that PDF on their machine, and if they have a web-based version only, then they can't really save that PDF. Web-based versions typically don't print out very well either. So, this gives the ability to have both. So we covered table of contents here. We covered the new photos, opening and closing. Clickable, if I go to the summary, let's see here, general inspection summary. So you'll notice even directly in here, my finger is going to change no matter what I'm hovering on. So as a client, I can go, okay, the roof, there were defects and damages, and I can click that, and it's going to take me directly to that portion of the report. So the summary itself is now interactive. So we did that in a lot of different places to try to make this. And again, if I'm here and I'm looking at the web-based version of the report, it's doing the exact same thing. I can come over here, I could jump to general summary, and then I can jump to those exact same defects, and it's going to take me directly to that. I can open up my photos. With the web-based version, any video that's in here will open directly within the web browser. It doesn't launch the default system player. The nice thing is, obviously, the web-based version will play perfectly fine on any mobile device, any desktop device. With PDFs, if the client views that on a mobile device, they're going to see a lot of the features, but only some mobile devices will support video, some won't. That's one of the reasons we recommend in your report email that goes out, whether you're sending it from ISN or whether you're sending it from HIP Office, make sure that you include that, in the email, a description of the difference between the web-based version and the PDF version. Dan, have we had any questions about any of that so far?
Not much. You mean specifically now or in general?
About the stuff that I've covered so far.
Not really. The one question was for the pop-up photo that popped up. What is the size of those images that's popping up?
Sure. So I believe that Mike was actually using a quality 3, maybe a 4. Quality 5 would have been even larger than this. So now the actual size that it appears will change based on each person's computer. It'll also change a bit if they're completely zoomed in a few 100%. So remember, PDFs allow you to actually zoom in and out, which, based on screen. So like I have a 15-inch Surface Book I'm using right now. And so it defaults to popping up at 162%. But if you have a massive 30-inch that you're looking at, or if your name is Jeff Belrose and you're an inspector with 8 monitors hanging on your wall, and you like to display things across all those monitors at the same time, I've seen on my 30-inch, it actually opens up at 200% to fill that screen. And so the images will be physically larger. That's one advantage of PDFs and how we currently do our web-based reports, is the photos and the text are always going to be the exact same ratio to the actual report. So typically on a web-based document, the larger the screen, the higher the resolution, the smaller the photos actually appear because of the number of pixels. Or on HIP, 3 photos across, those 3 photos are always going to take up 90% of that page and 90% of the screen if you're zoomed in. If you're doing 2 photos across, each photo is going to be like 40 to 45% of the screen. They're not going to get smaller as it gets larger. All right, so one of the other really cool new features we'd had people asking about over the years, and we had enough people ask that we added this into HIP 6. Just a reminder, I'm not a home inspector and nobody on our team is. And that's something that really helps differentiate us, especially early on, is all the inspection software was created from home inspectors. And so we base what we do based on inspectors' feedback. So, if someone thinks an idea is great, we put it to the community. Everyone else thinks it's great, we add it. Someone thinks it's a bad idea, or I think it's a bad idea, we put it to the community. They usually tell me I'm wrong, and it's a great idea, and so we add it. So advanced colors and summaries. There's quite a few new features in here. So the first one is you now have the ability to include advanced colors and captions. So if I have multiple colors here, I can color all these narratives. And I can now also color code all my captions as well. And that will turn this on and off right here. The other option here is to enable separate summaries by category. And so I can go in, and the default summary title is something that is moved to red, but doesn't have a specific name assigned to it. And I can change the different fonts and stuff right here for that. I'm going to change the title just to be, let's see, typical issues. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change this title to be safety issues. And this might not apply to this particular report at all, but we'll just set it up this way. And this will be maintenance issues. And we can go through, I think this is probably, actually green's usually maintenance for most inspectors, but we'll say will cause house to explode issues. All right, so we can go through and let's see, age defects, name each of these. I've enabled this, and now I'm going to go through and I'm going to generate the report again. One thing to remember is close the PDF before you generate again. You do not need to close Adobe, just close the PDF and click on generate. That'll speed things up because Adobe is actually one of the big holdups is Adobe has to relaunch. And so if you leave Adobe open, it goes a lot faster. While that's generating, again, this report has a couple hundred photos, so it takes a minute. We added in new features for new different summary as well. So I'll cover that in a second so you can see how that goes. We added in control of the footers for each page. So instead of just having one that and one a border color that appears on every single page, we've actually now made it so you can separate that out for each different section directly on the report settings section colors page. And that way, we have inspectors, for example, Bob Elliott, he color codes every single section a different color. And so, when you're going through, I think, Mike here has blue for every single section of border. But if you had a different color within each section, that would help the footer as well and make sure that stands out. So I'm going to jump directly over here to the summary. I'm going to expand this. You'll see here that we've now see multiple summaries. So we have our typical issues that was listed here. Our safety issues, that's all separated out. Those are all the comments that are in red. Maintenance issues, I could also change that background. Let's say that blue on black is hard to see. If I go back to advanced colors, I can go here and change, actually that's the background. Let me change the font color to be white, and that would make that white on blue instead once I generate again. We have the building structure that's separated out, and then age defects. And so this allows things to separate. I've seen some inspectors that are starting to separate things by construction type too. So it doesn't have to be by severity. It could be you, and you don't even have to change the colors. It could be that you have kept everything, just black or red if you wanted to, and you have several topics that are black and several that are red. But you could actually make it so this is all electrical issues, and 2 is all plumbing issues, and 3 is all structural issues. And then what that'll do is your report will be room by room, but when you go to generate the report, it'll create this summary that is actually built out system by system. And so there's a lot of different features that you can do directly within this. And we'll be adding more to that with time, but that's some of the stuff that you can do right now. We added new summary options, like I mentioned. So if I go down to report settings and options, there's quite a few new things here. So one of the things is a summary page and item format. So the page and item are in separate columns, which is what they are on here. So each thing is a separate column. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to make a few changes here. I can also make this so the page and item are listed in one vertical column. I'm also going to print that summary borderless. That will improve the look here quite a bit. We can also change here the title of table of contents. This, of course, was something someone asked as soon as we released HIP 6, because we had inspectors using other languages and we forgot to add that in there. And so some of our French inspectors up in Canada immediately said, hey, what the heck, we need to change this out of English. So, so there's a lot of options directly in there. The footer fonts that I was talking about. And again, yes, I realize I'm obviously covering things very quickly. This will be recorded and you can play this back. There's also a full detailed list of all these things on the help desk under the change logs. So the background right here for footer, so you could change that. So right now, all the sections are white, except for the table of contents and the summary. So you can change the font separately from the footer as well. So if you want to change and have a different header and different color background for each section, those would definitely show in there directly. So we changed those 2 things. The glossary now, that was one thing we had inspectors asking for. They wanted more control over the glossary. So you now can control the header, the background, and the footers and everything else, just like any other section directly of the glossary. And remember, the glossary is that pop-up that you had throughout the report, but then also at the end of the report, we'll scroll here to the end of the web-based report, is a glossary of all the terms that you used in that particular report. So if I have 500 terms in my HIP glossary, but I use 30 of them on the report, just those 30 would appear here directly in the back of the report. We added in, let's see here, some new options under formatting for, let's see here. Oh, to set a default font style. So when you do inherit from formatting now, before it would copy the colors over from report settings and formatting, now it will actually copy over a lot more things under report settings and formatting. This will also be the default when you create new sections. So I have under here summary fonts. I have new footer fonts. And so like if I set the footer font to be, white and with a black background, that's going in the footer background color. That's going to be used when I click that inherit button. The same thing, glossary title, glossary key. So you can change the different columns of the glossary and the fonts within it as well. And the table of content settings, this all becomes the default as you add new sections in. And then within that, you can individually customize things under section colors and print order. So I'm going to go flip over and let's go ahead. Let's see if there's anything else I should do before generating. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to generate a new report so we can look at that. And I've closed the PDF just to make sure. Okay, so that's going to generate. Let's see. We added support for HEIC photos. So those are for all our guys that take iPhone photos, that take them outside Home Inspector Pro. So before, if you're taking pictures for some reason outside of HIP, I know guys will go to, you might doing a 4-point where you're just trying to race through things real quick and you're not actually using the software, you're just using your normal camera. You can do that directly, and then HIP will actually now import that new iPhone format without any problems. We talked about enlarging photos within HIP. Okay, so finish generating there. Click on the photos within the HIP tab. Let me switch over here real quick. Oh, no, we're still generating. We added in, let's let this open here real quick. Probably should have chosen a smaller report as my sample, but Mike Lagana just makes me feel nice and calm when I look at his reports because of all his pretty colors and just thinking about the fact he's sitting on Kauai somewhere watching this. So you'll notice where it was 2 columns before, it's now 1 column, and I've also removed the borders completely. And so that's just something to kind of give this a nicer look here as we're going through things. Dan, you took off mute. Did you have a question?
Yeah, make sure that you, since we're covering the advanced colors and everything, also take a look at some of the new comment formatting options for the actual editing comments.
Which ones are you referring to?
Bold, underline, color.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. So that was on my list. We can go ahead and jump to that right now. So when you're working in your narratives, so we're looking at a bunch of comments here for garage and carport. Mike has this H1 because a lot of his properties are multi-unit houses. You can see the C are all these caption comments. We have all our notes, which are set up as a different color to pop out. That's been around for a while. But what is new now is when you're editing a comment, I can come in here now and I can highlight text and I can bold that text. I can underline text or italicize it. I can also say that I want particular narratives to be completely different colors. And so I can say, I want this to really be highlighted in here. Oops, forgot the E as well. So I'll color that and take that off. All right, so this gives you a lot more control over the individual narratives. Now, what will happen is if I take this narrative and I add it to black or red, it will maintain the color. Oops, I selected the wrong one there. This one. It'll maintain the changes that you made. And so if you, let's say you had changed this comment, it was an advanced color, and I wanted this to be, purple. It maintained the bold and it maintains the underline and everything else. So all that stuff is directly maintained in there. If it's a normal comment, it's going to pop out with those colors and everything that you've set directly on there. There's a lot of other new things that are here too. So for example, I can now highlight a word and click on link. And so it's saying the word partition wall is going to link to, I'm going to type in, some cool site that has information on partition walls. So preferably, this is your website. And so what'll happen is this link will become clickable on the report. And I can always come in here, highlight that, and then click on link again. Oops. Click on link again to change that. But the advantage of doing that directly to your website is you're driving traffic back to your site. And of course, that increases your website ranking, which means you're going to get more business from it. So from a marketing angle, we highly recommend as much as you can linking back to your site. Internet actually has awesome articles, for example, on almost every topic you can think of. It's just important that you take that content and then you rewrite it in your own words so you don't get hit with a plagiarism penalty from the search engines like Google. But anyways, you can link directly on there. The other big new feature, we've had link photo for a while. That's where you link a graphic. That could be from like our graphic library you can download from our downloads page, which has 1,000 graphics that redesigned and resized from the International Library. But the new feature is link PDF. So I can go link PDF and I can go, I have a demo here, like an asbestos article I have here. And this is a 2-page article. It shows me here on what is asbestos. And now, obviously, this narrative might not make sense, but when I select this narrative from now on and I add this to the report, it puts this little icon here to let me know that it's going to add asbestos guidance .pdf to this report. And I'll leave it on here so we can see it next time I generate. But what will happen is there'll be a link within that narrative at the end to jump directly to that article, but that article will be placed at the end of this section of the report. So that way it's still in line. And it'll be reduced in size slightly so it fits within the report's borders and everything else. Of course, like I said, you can link graphics too. If you link graphics, when you select a narrative, they automatically show. That feature has been there for quite a while. One of the other new things that we did is we really upgraded the lists feature, create and edit lists. So there's quite a few things here that are new. One is we've set a default for whether a list is a multi-select or a single select. And this really just affects the desktop use. On mobile, you can still sit there and select as many things as you want. But what this will do is if I select a list within a comment, it pops up the list of options. On the desktop, if it's single click or single select, when I select it, it's automatically going to close the list. If it's a multi-select, once I click it, I'll have to click a checkbox at the bottom to let it know that I'm done selecting. So if you have a list of bathroom locations in your narrative, for example, you have a narrative that says mold-like substance was found under sink, and then you click on locations, and it's a multi-select, you select all the different bathrooms that you have that issue, and then you click OK. In either case, if you right-click on the list, it'll do the opposite. So for example, here, if I take a narrative and insert a list, and I'll insert that attic access list. Right now this is a single select, so it allows me just to select the item. But if I change that and it's a multi-select, let's see, insert, basically anything else. And now when I click on it, I left-clicked, I can select multiple options, or if I right-click on it, I just select one and it selects just that one that I selected. Lists have been in there for quite a while, and that's simply the left click or the right click. But the new things that we added within lists, so we added that multi. We also added the ability to check something as a default. So if you find that your branch circuit wiring, copper and stranded aluminum is what's in 90% of the houses in your area, you can check that box. And now when you insert that list into the report, it'll make that the default if you insert a new list. If I come down and I select update default, it'll scroll through, excuse me, every narrative in the report, and it'll change the default to be that selected item. Or if I make this, I can actually have it be multiple items here as well. So that's a really cool new feature. We added in a bunch of keyboard shortcuts. So for those of you that are going on a binge edit list day, you can print this out or take a screenshot of it, and then Control Shift to add a list, rename a list, delete a list, or add comments, edit comments directly within here to really speed things up as you're going through things. So I think that covers, I know most of you guys know this already. You can click on sort and you can sort the narratives, you can sort the lists. I had someone ask about this the other day. They didn't realize if you click on edit comments, You can also sort all your narratives. Yes, I'm sure. And then I'll sort all my narratives, in this case, by the note name, since Mike has notes set up for every single narrative here. He's also pre-color coded with advanced colors, most of his lists. Dan, did I miss anything there about lists?
No, that was pretty thorough.
Okay, just wanted to make sure as I was going through everything. We covered multiple summaries. Oh, list feature within captions. So that's a really cool one. So right now I have a garage comment here, and you can see this icon. There's actually a list there within it. So if I have a photo, by the way, you can use the tab key or shift tab to quickly go through these. But there's a garage carport. And in fact, this one has it right here. So I can click this and I can actually select multiple items because that's a multi-select list. Or if I right click, single select that list. There's also a new icon right here to click on to open this caption in a larger window. So we have guys that are adding really long lists in here. Looks like there's one right here. So Mike's added a really long caption in here. I'm going to click that, and now I can see the entire narrative directly in there. And so that just kind of speeds things up. We added a few other new options. If you haven't noticed right here, application settings in the bottom left really allows you to change some of the functionality within HIP. So for example, it can change the default. Left is for multi, default is right. So you can actually uncheck that. That'll flip it around. Tab, instead of doing a tab for forward and back, you can do control tab. Scroll panel tabs, wrapping, and photo tabs. Scroll them instead of wrapping. So what that would do, if your monitor doesn't have a high enough resolution. So for example, right now, I have 4 rows of photos here, which is over 240 photos, right? Yep, 6 times 4. So I can still see all my buttons here for editing a photo. If your resolution isn't as high, you might actually get to the point where you add so many photos that it starts to push things down. If you come over here and you scroll photos instead, when you restart HIP, it'll make this a single row across the top with arrows on each side to jump left and right. And so that will actually make it so everything always fits. So the other thing that we added in here was to show the photo captions on the top. So that's how they used to be up here on the top. I know some people really got accustomed to that. We added it to the bottom because we felt it more matched what was physically on the report. Another thing we actually did is there's drop downs for the captions and the possible captions on the left side and the right side. You can also adjust the image pop-up zoom. So right now, when I'm on this page, if I click a photo, it opens up at 100% quality. So the size of that will depend on what your photo setting was and your resolution. That's a very large photo. If you have a massive, 30-inch screen, that might not be as large. And so under application settings, you can come in here and you can say, I want this to be, opening up at like 150% or 125%. And that way that photo will really pop out so you can see it. Other options here for search and that kind of stuff, that's always been there. Let's see here. What have I not covered yet? We added in the option to have a different delimiter. I forgot about that. So in lists, you can come in here now, and if you double click on the list name, it'll allow you to choose how you want multiple items within that list to be separated. So the default is what it always was before, which is comma, but you can actually have multiple items separated by a space or nothing. So the narratives will actually show up back to back. Maybe if you're using multiple portions of a word to actually form a longer word or something that's hyphenated, you can add that directly in there. Covered keyboard shortcuts. All right, now one of our really big new features. I'm going to jump over here and reopen. Let's see here. I have a WinMit. Actually, I want to go to client data. Open up a WinMit report. Okay, so one of the big new awesome features in HIP 6 that we're super excited about, and we've been making changes to this based on user feedback. In fact, we have another version that's just about to come out here in the next week with some more updates. Wind mitigation is something that inspectors have been able to do with our mobile app for a very long time. The problem is that really wind mitigation was the only specific form other than the Texas Trek form that HIP could create. It's unlimited in its flexibility. You can create a template for anything. We have inspectors doing, boats and skyscrapers and cranes and all sorts of different things with the software. I've even seen guys doing playground inspections and car inspections. But this will allow you to take any form fillable PDF and insert it into HIP and then answer it directly within the report. So how it appears to you on mobile and on the desktop, the fields themselves you select just like you would in any other inspection. So obviously this will make the most sense for guys in Florida, but the concept is the same. We're creating some other forms, for example, 4-point forms. We're doing a roof cert form. We're doing a bunch of termite forms and everything else. It just takes up some time to set up, but you can do this 100% on your own. We have tutorials on the website, and we have some new tutorials coming out here as well. But I'm going through right now, and basically the note field is what's controlling what is selected in the report. So I can go through and say this is a 2-story, it's in Broward County, it's Citizens Insurance. This is something that most inspectors won't use if we left it blank. I can come in and the form has checkboxes. So I want to select 1A, I want to put a permit application date, but I'm going to change that date to actually be 6/6/21. For some reason, it was just permitted today. I can go in my roof coverings. I can select multiple items here. Let's see here. Obviously, normally you're not going to select both. I'm just kind of randomly selecting here. Type, yes, I want that selected. This is the asphalt shingle and the year it was built, and if there's an FBC code. And then with the wind mitt, there's multiple different roof types that they're going through. So I'm going to jump over. They have comments about the roof deck attachment. I'm going to select a couple of these. And so what happens under insert PDFs, I have already inserted this form. I can add a new PDF form, or sorry, a new form right here. Add document literally just adds a static PDF, add form adds a form fillable PDF. This has been saved to my template. That's why it was already here. And now when I open this up, notice nothing is selected yet, except for variables that I've added. So in this form, it has the client's address, for example. And so I've selected from this dropdown, it has a list of all the variables in HIP. I've selected the client address, so it automatically always populates this. But once I click on populate form, what that does is it grabbed the information I had just selected. And I only went through the first 2 tabs, but building code, it checked that box. Roof covering type, it selected that, it put in the year and that kind of stuff. And when I go through the report, it would fill out all of this. You could actually come in here and you can directly modify things on here as well. But when you're done, you come down and you save the form, and I generate the report. Now, here's something that confused a few guys in the beginning. You're actually not telling the wind mitt to print. If you do this, it'll actually print the data in the HIP format as well. And for some PDFs, guys have wanted the data printed along with the actual form fillable PDF. In this case, we just want the PDF. It's a wind mitt. I don't care about the table of contents or anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to generate this. And this is going to pop up the PDF. Now, the cool thing is about this, and this really, from the inspectors I've seen already using this, it really helps them stand out, because now not only do you have your form, but you can actually stick a really nice cover on the front of it as well. But notice it started populating all the fields directly in here. So the check marks, it's added the date in here. I added in the FBC and the year of manufacturing. So the check marks, and this can be done with any PDF. Basically, the PDF form has a bunch of field names. When you go to HIP and when you add a new form, it's going to automatically read all those field names, and they're grouped as part of the way that you name them. That's covered more in detail in the tutorials. But that way you can populate that form on the fly. So this can be an insurance form. It could be something as simple. I saw one of our companies has a monster-free certificate. And so they have a single certificate, 8.5 by 11, and they have a line for the client's name. And so the PDF is literally a single field, the client's name. And so anytime they generate a report, it automatically includes that and automatically fills in the client's name. If you're doing warranties and stuff like that, and you have a warranty page in the back, or you have a maintenance sheet, but you want to put the client's name on it so they can print it out separately and hold on to it. You can do that all with this form feature. So it's a super powerful feature. We'll definitely be continually adding more forms in there as time goes along. One of the other features here, edit dictionary maintenance. So we added in more flexibility in the dictionary. If there's a word that pops up as spelled wrong and you don't want it to be listed as wrong anymore, you can tell it to ignore that word. You can also add new words directly into the dictionary as well. Dan, do you have some questions there?
Well, one that was brought up is for the wind mitigation and also the 4-point, the client's required to sign that. And is there new functionality to allow for signing?
Sure, I'll let you go ahead and answer that. I'm going to look at the next things to cover while you answer that.
So within the Home Inspector Pro desktop program, you've always been able to put in the client signature under report settings and client signature. In the latest version of the HIP6 mobile, on the client info screen, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there is also a spot to have the client sign there. And that signature that is applied from the HIP mobile will be applied to your, can be applied to your forms, other forms, but it is part of the wind mitigation and 4-point.
Yes, exactly. So you can, do it here. If you had a client sign, you can upload it. But like Dan said, 99% of inspectors are going to be collecting that signature directly on their mobile device on the client info tab when they're on site.
And two other questions regarding to the forms. So no, you don't need to have us build the forms. You can really do any forms you want. Some of the more complicated ones, like the WinMit and the 4-point, we're doing those so that they're consistent and because they're very large forms. But you can build it off any PDF, and there's actually tutorials that you can that cover the forms, and we're working on expanding those tutorials. The other one is the Nmpa 33 form has been asked before. That's a special situation because it is a licensed form and they charge a lot for those forms. So we're working on options of how we're going to do that. It's basically they charge money for it, so we can't just give it out. There's a bunch of legal stuff that we got to take care of first before we can do that.
Yeah, so Nmpa 33 is a licensed form through their organization, and there's a annual charge to us, and it's a extremely large, kind of surprisingly large annual fee. And so that one in particular, we'll be releasing, but we'll probably be doing it as something like it's $50 a year per inspector to help cover that cost. With any other form, if it's a form that we think a lot of inspectors will use, then let us know, we'll create it, we'll add it. If there's specific forms, for example, you're in Texas, there's a hurricane, and you get hired by Farmers Insurance to do 1,000 inspections for them for the roofs, and they have a specific form. You can create it yourself. We're also adding a service to create those for you, and that would be for a fee because it's something customized for you to use. So going over a few other things, Dan, feel free to jump in any time. On the photos page, we added a new save icon. Of course, now I have a template with nothing in it. So let me jump back ahead. That new save icon that you saw, so that will allow you to quickly and easily export a photo out of HIP. And that's something we've had for forever. They want to use a photo that they took in HIP for something else. And so going to, whoops, I clicked on two there at the same time. What happened? There we go. Okay, it's opening the inspection there. Under photos, when you're looking at the photo page, you can actually click this save icon now and then save that photo elsewhere on your computer. You don't have to manually go to the temp folder anymore like you did before. You could just save it to your downloads folder or something else, and that's there. The other really cool things, we added in the new 360 photo. So I already have a photo there. If I take a new spot, I go 360. I think under software demo, I have a few 360s here. Oh yeah, there you go. So here's a 360 photo, and it takes a second because it has to process that image. And you can actually use a kind of a little slider within it to look at it. And
Are there any recommendations for cameras or how to get the 360
Yeah,
photos?
so 360 photos, there's actually mobile apps you can use. I've seen guys using, what I tested on was the GoPro Fusion 360. There's a lot of different devices that you can use. As long as it saves it as a JPEG, which 90% of cameras do. You must add the 360 via this button. I've had guys taking 360s and they're adding it via the normal photo button. If you import it that way, it's going to be a normal JPEG. It's just going to look really stretched out. You need to use that 360 because HIP has to basically cut it. Within the PDF, what happens, I'm not sure if I have a demo of the 360 as a PDF already set up. I'm not sure if I created one, otherwise I'll generate this here in a second and show you guys. No, I don't. Okay. In the web-based version, the HTML version, you can pan up and down, drag your mouse and look up and down like you would any 360. On the PDF, it gives you a left and right scroll button. And that way they can actually scroll left to right directly within the mouse. So I'll add that on there. Next time I generate, we'll take a quick look at that. We added a lot of things in there that don't directly affect the end report. There's progress bars in a lot more places, so you have more feedback as to what's actually going on. We also added support within the captions now for advanced colors. So like if I was in here and I add, a 1 on there or 2, it's actually going to support the advanced color itself. We do have a version, we're adding that into the editor there as well, but I don't think it's on this. This is the public, not the beta I have right now. But if you had pre-set up a comment within your captions that had a color on it, I think he's got a few here. Let's see. Yeah, see these 1, 2, 3s that were in the report already? So that's going to automatically make that comment in blue here. The word blue he actually has in his narrative. That's not something HIP added. But because there was a 2 on there when that comment was selected, it'll make that caption comment blue within the actual report. We did the 360s, text within narratives. We covered that. Text to be hyperlinked. We covered that. We talked about table of contents. Themes. So from an aesthetic standpoint, we did add in under edit, program themes and fonts. So if you like a dark theme, you can come in here and this will skin HIP and change everything within it. It takes a few seconds for it to actually change everything. You can actually, for the most part, things look the same, but it does add a little bit of variety into it. It's still going there. It does take a little bit the first time you do it to actually change everything. And you could change back if you don't like the theme. Let's see here, request repair list builder. So within HIP, when you go upload, there it goes. When you upload to HIP Office, I haven't imported this to ISN. I'll do that in a second. Import it from HIP Office. So I'm gonna import. I know a lot of guys saw this and immediately switched to the dark theme, so it matched stuff that was on their phones and everything. So I'm going to import that client info data that showed up right here. And then when I upload this report to HIP Office, we do now have the request repair list feature. That is a feature with ISN that we actually built with ISN years ago in conjunction with them. Now, when I create this report, it's going to pop up. It's going to show me all the issues that I put on the summary. And any of the narratives I put on so any photos and any I put on the summary, so let me select which will go up to the agent on the repair list. So we're going to set that for now. There it goes. It was taking a while to load because, like I said, this is a huge report. See, there's a lot of photos in here. So most inspectors will just click on select all items and select all photos, but you can actually go through and just send particular things to HIP Office. And this works identical to the feature we have to send data to ISN. Dan, did you have a question there?
No, I was thinking of something else.
Okay, no problem. So I think that covers everything of the major items that was added in HIP 6. I'm going to generate this report in the background. I actually really do like how this dark color scheme looks. In the meantime, I'm going to click here on chat. Oops, I already had the report open. All right, Dan, any other questions we want to cover there?
You're
muted there.
Yeah, there have been a couple questions about Next Inspect. And so the repair request list, my understanding is that won't work in Next Inspect once
No,
initially.
so Next Inspect does not have a repair list feature. So that feature is a conjunction with HIP and ISN, HIP and HIP Office, because ISN and HIP Office have that feature. It'll work within it, but that's not a feature that Next has an integration with. I'm sure Nathan will add it eventually if you harass him enough. But at this current time, that's only a HIP or ISN feature. Let me jump over here to Q&A. Scott Patterson, can the request repair list be set to automatically be selected when the report is produced and uploaded? So Scott wants to save himself that one checkbox. We could definitely add that in there as an option. I know with multi-inspectors especially, they want to make that an option to make sure the inspectors always select that. By the way, this is recorded, and we will post this and post it on Facebook and everything else afterwards. It'll also be on our support site under all our support articles.
And that's a reminder to, it's a good idea if you haven't already, sign up for the Facebook group for Home Inspector Pro, because we do post all of this type of stuff will also be posted there.
Correct. So the Facebook group is really an awesome place to see us discuss new features. You will get a lot of guys asking questions on their support issues. It's really not intended to be for tech support. We have live chat and phone and email and help desk for that, but you do get quite a bit of that. If there's a quick issue, we'll usually answer it. Otherwise, we direct you over to our normal support. So James Ellis asked, I thought there's gonna be a way as an admin to send my inspectors our template, which would include all settings. That's an excellent question. So that is in development already. That will be probably HIP 6.2, possibly in the HIP 6.1 line. That integrates directly into our multi-inspector version of HIP Office. Even if you're not using HIP Office, the ability to group your employees and share all those files and everything else is definitely coming. And so that will allow you as the owner to basically press a button and push your template with all the documents, graphics and everything else directly over to your inspector. We're also working, even as a single inspector, a way to sync all your files between all your devices without using something like Dropbox, like inspectors do now. Let's see here. Garrett asked if there's a Termite template that will work for California. I'm not sure if there is a specific Termite template for California. I know the Nmpa would definitely work. If California has a specific form, then you could use that, or you could import it directly or send it to us. It's something that we would definitely add in there. Let's see. Eddie's asking, can I get additional licenses for my managers for each team member if you have a multi-inspector firm? So yes, that's something, contact us and we'll definitely help you out with that. People are asking
more to the,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Because a lot of these I've already answered the people, so just so you're repeating stuff. For Eddie specifically is with the multi-inspector right now is the owner can see all the licenses as Dominic showed. One of the things that we're working on and is actually in the process right now because of the multi-inspector and the company support is that you would be able to, as the owner, designate other people who would be able to manage the licenses for you. So that they, like you have a guy who runs a team of 3, they could then be able to see the reports of just the 3 guys that he manages and not everybody's reports. That's what we're working on as part of that.
Correct. There's a ton of new stuff that's going on there. And the cool thing is now a lot of that is actually being handled through our HIP Office team. We have 6 programmers that are working on that. But it's a lot of like the template sharing between inspectors. There's only a small front end on the desktop side. So the desktop side of it's actually done where you'd be able to select which template you want to share. But the rest of it's being handled through HIP Office, which is, why we've built HIP Office to be this engine to handle scheduling and contract signing and payments for inspectors and everything else. And we have a lot of guys that are using that since we launched it in the beginning of 2020. But it's also being set up to handle file management and everything else between inspectors, so we can handle all that on a, through the web-based management system. So let me look through, let's see, BK, you don't have Facebook or anything else, that's fine. Like I said, this video will be posted directly to our website as well. Dan, did you have any other questions that you saw here for us to answer?
Nothing that's really that general, no.
Okay, I'll give, let's see. Ronald Pridgeon said, I thought trainings were canceled. I was told they do not do it anymore because video exists. Not sure who you heard that from, but that's definitely not the case. Dan here actually does weekly training sessions that are about 2 hours, depending on the number of questions. You can sign up by just emailing help@homeinspectorpro.com or jump on live chat. That covers everything from A to Z within our software. We do have a ton of videos. And of course, if you call us at any time, we do trainings as well. We're also going to be launching a bunch of HIP Office trainings and smaller HIP feature specific trainings throughout the week. So like I said, we've gone from 12 to 24 employees right now, and we're hitting the point now where we have enough support staff that we're able to, for example, on Tuesday, maybe set up a training that's specific to how to work with the HIP cover page designer. We've hired several new designers for our HIP cover page designs. So if you do want a custom cover page design, just jump on our website under pricing. You can purchase a cover page and then a stationery if you want it, and that will give you something that's completely custom to match your business colors and theme and everything else.
Do you want to give a quick overview of how team inspections work?
Sure. Someone was asked about team inspection. So our beta testers have been testing team inspections here for months. It's a huge feature. The biggest thing that is requiring all the testing is really what happens when people are in a poor internet connection or they lose connection altogether. So team inspections when multiple inspectors are on HIP Mobile, whether they're on iPhones or Android devices, when the team leader starts an inspection, you get a code. Everyone else clicks join inspection and types in that code directly on their mobile device. And then they all end up working on one inspection together. And it works flawlessly right now, as long as you're connected to the internet. We've been dealing with some of the edge cases, which is, if one guy drops off the internet and has no connection for 5 minutes, let's say, any work he does when he rejoins the internet syncs back up. But there's some logical things we have to handle, like especially in Texas, where they really have a much smaller template. What happens if one inspector says something is deficient, another inspector says it's not, or one inspector selects a comment, another inspector deselects a comment? For the most part, inspectors that do team inspections have divided things up where it's not a problem at all, but we're trying to make sure we handle all cases. So that will be something that is released here very shortly to the public. We also have a new feature for mobile that we're testing right now that is a video slideshow that I'm really excited about. So on HIP Mobile, you select the button for the slideshow, you select the top 20 or 30 photos, and then you go through and you can swipe through the photos just like the HIP client app. You can select like draw on them, put arrows and stuff, and voice record and narrate that, and then save it as a video when you're done. So if you have out-of-town buyers, or during COVID, people weren't showing up, you can actually insert that video directly into the report to give a kind of a highlight video directly for your client. For those of you that don't know what HIP client is, we have seen a ton of uptake on this feature, especially because of COVID. Especially in the beginning when no one was showing up for inspections, and sellers don't want people in their houses, which still happens. HIP client allows you to take start an inspection, basically a team inspection. It'll give you a code. You can put that into an iPad that you own or an Android tablet, or send this code to your client. And then it starts a slideshow so your clients can watch the entire inspection. And this has been huge. It saved a lot of our inspectors about half an hour per inspection, which is massive. And the first way it does that is your clients are on site. You sit them down at the dining table, throw a popcorn in the microwave, you tell them to, they're testing the microwave, eat the popcorn. Here's a, waypoint inspections, notepad, take notes as you watch the slideshow. And then the clients don't follow you on site. So they're not following you on the roof and the attic, which are liabilities issues. They're not, asking you questions constantly. They can see the report basically as you're building it. They can go look at things on their own. And then you stop by from time to time and ask them questions. And so, that has been huge. And we had inspectors that were first-year inspectors. Basically, last year was their first full year, that finished over 400 inspections. And a large part of that was this client presentation app because agents were eating it up. Sellers didn't want people in their house. And so using this feature allowed sellers to watch from home, which wasn't the original intent. The original intent was to save time on site with clients there. But, we had a lot of smart inspectors that figured out how to take what we designed for one thing and use it for another. Any other questions there, Dan?
Nope.
Okay. So I definitely appreciate everyone coming in today. Hour 20, not too bad. If anyone has any follow-up questions, please shoot them directly to help@homeinspectorpro.com. A couple things to remember: HIP 6 upgrade is $249 unless you fall into that free period. You purchase it through our website by clicking on pricing. You can also purchase it directly under office.homeinspectorpro.com. On our help site, help.homeinspectorpro.com, there's an article you can see there that says steps to check before upgrading to HIP 6, a HIP 6 checklist. Make sure to go over that first. That'll let you check your licensing just to make sure that you're fully licensed beforehand. Anyone that purchased or upgraded in the last year and a half, basically at this point, you're already set. You just need to log in, allocate your license to yourself, upgrade, and you're good to go. Otherwise, guys, thank you very much. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you later.